500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
G'day everyone, this is X-Band, the Phantom Podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com and you can subscribe to our podcasts via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps. Do not forget to give us a rating on your podcast app and tell a mate about us. This is episode 233. It's our October 2022 Comics and News podcast. Now we have Jermaine, we've got Dan. Now, last podcast we had a creator / fan, and we have done the same this time. G'day, Matt Kyme. How are you, mate? And before you answer, it's a pleasure to finally meet you on the podcast.
Yeah, look, Steve, I'm absolutely thrilled because, as you said, this is the first time that we've actually spoken face to face. So, yeah, I'm extra happy to be part of this one today.
So am I, and I'm very grateful that you've been able to push back just a half an hour or so I could actually be here. I kind of skipped over these guys very, very quickly so I could get to you. But g'day, Germ. How are you?
Not bad, Stephen. He's forgotten about us, Dan. He's ditched us to the curb. He's just, yeah. Sorry.
I can understand that. I'm not going to be too upset about it, Steve. Completely understand. Good to be back talking Phantom with you guys tonight.
Always fun.
Should be a good fun podcast. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, it's going to be fun for sure. Absolutely.
So we've got 3 Frew issues to kick us off today. The last one, of course, being Matt's Manhunt, but we'll start with Frew 1928, The Leopard Cult by Norman Walker and Jamie Valve. Oh, here we go. We're going to put it up on the screen now for all those watching on YouTube, so you can see The Leopard Cult with the cover done by that looks like Jason Paulos.
It absolutely is.
Yep,
absolutely. And it looks like the Phantom's in Struggletown there with the leopards. And we had, from memories, the Maori fisherman going off to uni. Is this correct, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a rip on a plastic. Reminds me of in the tradition of Wombo the Gambler, and there was any number of Lee Falk stories where the Lolongo prince typically would go off to the big smoke and get caught up in the evils of the big cities, and this time it's the Maori fishermen. And it's good to see that this Scandinavian product from 1983 harkens back to those traditional type of stories and doesn't let us down. I really enjoyed it. It's a ripping yarn.
It's a fast-paced story.
It is. And I think a page or two back there, Germ, the where he knocks over the big panther god, that has throwbacks to other Phantom stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, the greatest. Yeah, is it Bell? Bell?
Zal, isn't it?
Zal?
The Idol of the Eastern Dark.
Yeah, and that's that one there for those who are on YouTube. Yeah, no, look, I reckon this is a fun story. It's fast paced. You got a bit of history. I always like the kind of stories about the 21st Phantom when you learn a little bit about a past Phantom as well. But you've got bad guys with a little bit of modern twist as well. You got the motorbikes in the jungles and stuff like that. I remember reading it and just wondering whether anyone would get upset with the way that some of the Maori tribe were portrayed. But I haven't seen any negative press about it, so I'm kind of glad about that.
What were you concerned about?
I just think that some of them were, and maybe I'm being uber sensitive here, but I was concerned that someone may be thinking that they were portrayed a little bit simplistic.
I took that as more that young people are simplistic and Maori people in particular. Maybe I work with a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, these are uni, so what they'll be 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Exactly. But yeah, I guess, yeah. But look, I was just a little bit concerned that might have raised, someone might have raised it, but I haven't seen anything. So, yeah.
Have you had a chance to read this story, Matt?
Look, I feel like a kid that hasn't done his homework, unfortunately. I'm just looking at the pages as they're flicking up. I've got this one. I haven't read it yet, but I just think from what I've seen, the artwork is stunning, and I love it. I think it was page 17. There was an image of Phantom being attacked from above, people jumping out of. That's a really striking image there, where there's the silhouetted figures leaping down at the net, and you can see through the net. That's all I can contribute to this discussion, having not read it. I'm sorry.
So what's interesting is that the leopard men is actually a thing in Africa. People dressing up as leopards, having leopard claws on there, a bit like the thuggies, where they go around and rob people and stuff like that. So if you enjoyed this story, maybe do a bit of a Google search, a bit of a Wikipedia troll, and have a bit of a look around. Basically, the leopard cult or the leopard men, because they're actually a real thing. So
Not sure that the modern iteration of the leopard men are building houses near universities and tunneling underneath them for their to revive secret ancient cults. But I did enjoy the end of this, and I think we should always say spoilers. If you haven't read them, you should have read them. Sorry, Matt, Phantom's wrath swallows the entire house. It's pretty cool. So it's a complete destruction.
It's almost. Maybe not James Bond, but MacGyverish, the way they're able to crack the pool open. And
yeah. What I was going to say is, I can't remember what I was going to say. I really like Jamie's art. It's so dynamic. There's almost a cartoon element to some parts of it, like like his face.
The bad guy getting punched there earlier.
Is that with the skull mark?
Oh, so the one where it might have been on about, I don't know, I'm not as good as Matt in terms of page reference, like 10 or 11. The eyes were just bulging as he got thumped. That page there.
We get thumped in the guts.
Yeah. So
page 14, yeah.
So there's almost a cartoon element to it, but Jamie's work works well with that. His art looks amazing in black and white. So look, I'm glad Frew published this. It's got.
So when was it first published? By
1983.
1983.
Yeah. So it was a good year. It was a good vintage, 1984, 83.
It really looks like there's that influence of the Eastern Dak there. That giant big cat. It's almost a tribute, to the folk story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering which one came first, but probably Eastern Dak. Very good. So if you haven't had a chance to read The Leopard Cult, check it out. It's I enjoyed it for one, and by the sounds of it, both Dan and Jermaine have as well. Following that, we had Frew 1929. This they've got two stories. We've got Death in Carpathia by Mikael Sol and Jonas Auden. And we also have part 2 of The Golden Queen by Shane Foley. Now, on the front cover, is that Luca Roberta?
Yep.
You did.
Oh, how am I going with picking my artist from the cover? 2 from 2.
He's done a good job with this cover.
Yeah, painted by the looks of things.
I think it's
made to look that way.
Yeah, I think it's probably a digital paint. But his digital paint style really suits the Frew comic. It's done. I don't have a scan of the back cover, but apparently, according to what Dudley says in the message from the publisher, the back cover it's got the hang on. Let me pin you.
Hang on. Go to Dan.
Stop share. That one there.
So there's the back cover there, and that's apparently a self-portrait of Luca Roberta, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what Dudley says. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's intriguing. Yeah, good to meet you, Luca.
Hello, Luca. But on the front page, back on the front cover.
My cover.
Well, back on the front cover, and we've got a take on the old Frankenstein story, the way that fella was put together.
That's what this story reminded me of as well.
Yeah, and sorry,
I was just going to say it's interesting that the if that is him, as it says there's a self-portrait on the back cover, it looks remarkably like the character in the comic. So that was a nice coincidence.
Yeah. Luca may have spent a lot of time with the mirror during this one, you reckon?
So nice little story, kick along. I'm trying to remember that it was a big tech company, I think, from memory, who are starting up in a little rural village in Carpathia. I can't pronounce the
Is
name of
it
the country
Zar?
correctly. I haven't got it in front of me, and it's too small for me to actually read.
ZUG is the name of the town.
And some of the locals aren't happy. The progress is going to bulldoze the church, and but the mayor, he's very happy because he's lining his pockets with gold thread by the way things are going.
Just say how delighted I was that the ease with which the mayor gave up the fact that he's a corrupt SOB. Like within
There's no beating around the bush. There was no in-depth investigations. How much you want to pay me?
Pages 9 and 10 are the entire conversation between the Phantom and the mayor. And he gives away very, very quickly that he is prepared to take all funds on, and he doesn't care who he's talking to.
Yeah, I did like the fact that the Phantom was actually able to use like a phone and stuff, though. And he was able to. Oh, it's just like it's good to see the Phantom using technology and stuff. It doesn't deprive him of who he is. It aids him in this story. So I thought that was good.
Point you make, Tim, because when we were talking about the last story, Leopard Cult, you mentioned about how it was a modern twist and motorbikes and that sort of thing. But that's basically 40 years old, that story. This is actually the modern twist by the time you've got the Phantom using mobile phones and stuff.
Yeah. No, look, but I enjoyed this story. I think the story had problems, if you want to put it in a simple way, in the sense that, I don't think it was fully explained properly why the tech company was there. It all kind of happened, all kind of fell into place quite easily and stuff like that. But I didn't have a problem with it, and I really enjoyed the art as well.
I was wondering about this story. It seems like it's a modern take on a Frankenstein story, with the biological parts, putting that guy together. I wonder if the idea initially came from wanting to do, if Mikael wanted to do like a monster story, and he had a bit of an idea for one, and then tried to weave it into this setting. I sort of wonder what came first, the creepy elements at the end, because it takes a sudden shift. On page 19,
yes, it does.
We see the monster for the first time. And then again at the very end, page 24, when the hand comes up out of the grave. So it's very, in my opinion, it's very un-Phantom. Like the first 3/4 of the story, bang on Phantom, and then the end takes this sudden shift in tone. I wonder if that was always his plan to do a horror story, but to try and have it at least sort of grounded in reality.
Yeah, particularly that last panel, as you say, with the hand coming out of the ground that embeds it in the horror genre. The rest of it was fantastical, I suppose. It was a bit of a weird twist at the end. It would be an interesting question to ask Mikael as to where the idea come from and how he put it into a Phantom story. But I do like some of the artwork. Like I'm looking on page 22, and Germ's not here to flick the pages for us, but if you're looking through your comic at home, the top right corner of page 22, the profile of the Phantom that Auden has drawn there is it reminds me of some of the Moonstone Phantoms, actually.
I think on that exact same page, just the next panel down, when that monster's attacking Berg, just the muscle tone definition on the Phantom, that figure, I really spent a long time looking at that. The way the arms drawn, all those lines, it's really a stunning picture. And then the next page as well, it's like a giant splash page with the Phantom looking over the two bodies, and look at the smoke that's trailing out of the gun, and the light, the light which is coming in from the top left and darkening as it goes down, and all the texture of the those stones. It really is absolutely stunning art. So the art by Janez Auden, like right from the first page as well. It's he's someone to look at, because he's a stunning Phantom artist.
Well, even the page that we're stuck on at the moment, the picture of Mr. Walker there, that's fantastic. Awesome.
Put it on page 18. It's the picture of the Phantom hanging upside down.
Yes.
And I've actually I turned it upside down to have a look at it, because I'm sure that the artist must have drawn the Phantom, the right way up, and turned it. And that, I mean, that is another stunning page. There's a lot of really knockout artwork in this story.
There really is. Pretty people have different strengths, I suppose. The drawing people seems to be, although I say that, and his building work is excellent as well. So and then there's the animals and the horrific Frankenstein monster that's he's been able to have some creativity with, and drawn something that's truly horrible. So he's a very talented artist.
Completely agree. He's probably one of my top favorite current artists.
Yeah. Jermaine, could you take it to page 16?
Yep, sorry about that. 16, yes.
So right from the get-go, I was loving this art, but I think this was the page that really wowed me, because a lot of the pages leading up to this is just discussions and them talking in an office. But this picture, the lack of background in the first two images, I think, is really well done, because it really highlights the drama between of the conversation. But that third panel with Mr. Walker and the light shining in through the window on him, that's a really, really beautiful shot. That's one of the better pictures of Mr. Walker I've seen in a long time. And then the picture of the Phantom breaking into that lock. It's such an unusual picture of him, really, the way the light is shining up underneath the top part of his mask and on side part of his face. Really, really sketchy, but I just think I think that's really on point. That's a fantastic Phantom picture.
Yeah, there was I like this page here. Page 18, apart from the fact that they got hit over the head, and I can't read a comic without hearing Stephen groaning, even if he hasn't read the story yet.
No, I haven't read the story, but
I picture that in I saw it, and it's I get a flashback of Stephen groaning. It's you've ruined stories for me, Steve. So
we discussed this while you were gone. We said that is a standout picture, and I was telling the guys I turned my comic upside down to see those two images, or to see the larger image of him upside down. Really wonderful storytelling. Yeah,
the thing that I love, and sorry, I probably missed a little bit of what you talked about. The thing that I loved about this is how well it worked in black and white. Now, I've actually got a colour version, because I know that for some people, colour, black and white conversations quite big important. So this is in colour. This is a digital version of the Swedish that I have. It works just as well in colour.
Can you zoom out to a page at a time, Jen?
Is that better?
Yeah, thanks.
You know what? Personally, I think I'm a black and white guy. That picture you just showed a second ago with the guy, I really love that top left panel. It really reminded me a bit of the guy that does the spirit. I've forgotten his name.
Bill Eisner.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because there's that perspective and
Or the cross hatching.
the hard, the hard edge of that pillar and all that cross hatching.
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, I really love seeing that in a Phantom comic, and I'm just looking at both now. I think it looks better in black and white, personally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it that does look better in black and white, but some of it still looks really good in color. So I thought I'll just give you a bit of a look of it in color. There was the night scenes were the ones that really intrigued me in color. So there's the page there that you talked about with the page, was it 17?
Yeah, that Mr. Walker image. I think it was better in black and white than it is there in color.
This one here looks really good though. The depicting the lock. So let me go back to the one page. But I think these look really good in black and white, in black and white and color. Because like sometimes like you look at it when you get a chance to look at both of them in color and in black and white, one's always stronger than the other. And I think there's a lot of pages where we're like, oh, that looks better in black and white, or that looks good in color. I think they both work really good, both versions. So
here's a question. I've just noticed in the last page, the sound effects are different. Like the clonk. Two of the clonks in the black and white one are different. The first one and the third one.
Okay. What are they?
It's spelt the same. It's just a different font.
Interesting.
Oh, so they're clunks, but just fonts are different.
Yeah, the placement of them is slightly different. I don't know if anyone's got it in front of them, but the first one is raised up higher, so it's not touching the Phantom's head at all, and it's a far different sort of childlike sort of font.
Almost a Calibri or a much clearer, more open font than the graphic sort of more jarring, for want of a better term. It's smoother.
Oh, and the same on this page as well. That clonk, it's the same font. I wonder why or who made that change.
Foot on the head though.
Yeah, it just seems like work for the sake of it.
Yes.
So is that the sound that it makes no matter what country you live in? Or
it's always
that's the beauty of onomatopoeia, Germ.
I just wanted to raise this one. I really think this page works really well in color.
I prefer the black and white version of him upside down.
Well, I do as well. I love the black and white, but I also love the color, and I reckon the color highlights different stuff than what the black and white doesn't. But then the black and white highlights stuff that the color doesn't. So it's almost like I can appreciate different aspects, and the whole story's like this. But for me, this page is a true reflection of that. The color versus the black and white, there's different elements that I appreciate better in both versions compared to the other on different pages and all that. But I just thought it was just a fascinating look, having a look at both of the versions of the story.
Well, just put you on
color.
Sorry. Just put you on the spot. Back in the day, we definitely had a podcast at one point where we debated if you could only read the Phantom in black and white or color for the rest of your days. If you could only ever read this story in black and white or color, and you'd never saw the other one again, which would you choose?
I'll be happy with either, to be honest.
You got to choose one, mate. Off the fence.
Off the fence. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, while you're doing that, a bonus for the color, just looking at the monster, in color you can actually see the different body parts because they're different colors.
Like,
good call.
Yeah, which you didn't get in the black and white version. However, that's not going to sway me. I prefer in the black and white.
So you can almost appreciate the Frankenstein version of the monster better in color because you've got the shoulder and stuff. Yes, very good point, Steve. Yeah, look, I just
the sequel.
Yeah, I just thought it will be interesting in having a look at it in and the cross hatching works. Oh man, where was it? Sorry, it's touchy. I think down
The blood's
on this
very
page.
extreme in the color version, isn't it?
Yeah.
This
Here's a question: the Phantom is shooting. Is he shooting the Frankenstein in the top left?
Oh,
Who's he shooting?
Yeah, I think he was
you
shooting
might be
Frankenstein
right.
off him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Frankenstein started attacking the other guy.
yeah.
It looks like he's got old mate in the neck, though, doesn't it?
Well,
Yeah, but that's what the
ripping it
problem
up.
was.
Yeah,
That's where
So
the
the
Frankenstein
The monster was
was.
biting him on the neck.
Yeah,
So then when he shot him off, it would have ripped out all the blood
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, no, I definitely think you're right, Matt. I definitely think he's shot Frankenstein. Yeah, look, I don't know. It's
Would you mind could you just put up page 20 again?
on black and white or color.
Either. I think you asked them before what would you prefer? Personally, for me, black and white, but I think maybe like the younger audience would prefer color. And I think we're so used to black and white because our whole lives have been
Yeah.
So this is page
Condition.
20.
Yeah, I just thought that bottom right panel where the monster is biting the Phantom, that immediately reminded me of Neil Adams, the DC artist who was worked on Batman a lot. I think it's the cross hatching and the expression. It's very, very reminiscent of that fantastic artist Neil Adams.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
if
I
I was
think
getting bitten on the neck by Frankenstein's monster like that, I'd probably be saying something a bit more passionate than just ow. One exclamation point. You serious?
I think Henrik's a great artist. I mean, not Henrik. Janice.
Mm.
I love his work. Yeah.
How did you feel about the horror element, Jermaine?
I'm not sure if you've discussed this while I was gone, but I think it was borderline. Like the whole, and I'm not a huge fantasy person, and in reading this one and then the Frew graphic novel, I think I preferred this one because it wasn't as so far fetched, if you kind of know what I mean. Like he died, it wasn't like the main bit of it. It was okay, I've kind of put him back together, I've put him together, and now he's dead, all but is he dead? Yeah, so if I had to choose between this one and the Frew graphic novel, which are very similar stories with Frankenstein, I think I prefer this one.
Mm.
What about you?
Well, this one doesn't affect Phantom Law, does it? Like there's no element in here which is off character for the Phantom.
Yeah,
The
apart
Phantom's
from
just in this
shooting.
situation.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point where in the Frew graphic novel there was a couple of elements that I thought were not Phantom-like, which included the taking the potion, which is kind of like something from Batman, having a jail in the Skull Cave, which has never been seen before, and I don't think that's the Phantom's job to pass judgment. I think it's the Phantom's job to take him to judgment, to the others who do the judgment, not he does the judgment. So, yeah.
So part two the second story in this issue is part two of The Golden Queen by Shane Foley, and it's and part three comes in Matt's story, which is up next. So I think we'll do The Golden Queen now. Now, I haven't read part three, but I've read part two, and I've read part one, of course. And this is a nice, I like these little short stories that that Frew are doing, as for lack of a better term, backup stories, to help fill out to the 32 or 33, 6 pages, whatever it is. And this one, where we got the giants, that's right, and the brother and sister are arguing, and Phantom's caught in the middle, or he's been brought in to to try and bring the peace back, and Then we've got the Queen who's disagreeing with the priest. Everything's going on here. We've got a golden mist. Are you going to survive? Can you breathe? I'm really liking the story that's going on here, and I'm looking forward to reading part 3 and seeing how it all unfolds. But yes, we've got the old trope of the religious fanatic who's going to try and take over well, not necessarily the world, but at least this country.
His world, yeah.
So it's also worth making mention again that this is a prequel to a Lee Falk Barry story called The Golden People. Now, if you don't remember that story or you haven't read that story for a while, Chronicle Chamber has just released a For Those Who Came In Late video, which goes through the whole story and gives a little bit of basically a little bit of a background information on the sequel to this story. Well, that appeared first, so this is the prequel. So in the original story, we see a mention, a line in the Chronicle Chamber, and then there's some war cavings or war paintings, basically telling the story of what we're seeing here. And then Shane Foley's picked up that hole in Phantom lore and fleshed it out, which is what this story here is. I love it. I think I was never a huge fan of that original story, but I have more appreciation to the story now because of what Shane Foley has done here.
Oh, he's made you appreciate folk more.
Well, no, I've always appreciate that story because the story was one of those lost tribes. You know, the jungle must be as big as Africa because there's that many lost tribes and lost people and
it's very dense
stuff
jungle.
like that. Yeah, it's just, you know, like every square kilometre there's another lost tribe or something. So, you know, you kind of get over that a little bit. But I think Shane Foley's done a good story with this, and I love maybe I'm getting old and soft, but I'm loving the love story between the Queen and the Phantom in this.
I think it was in the first episode or first part where he mistakes her as the gardener or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And then here, realizing that she is the Queen. Like, you knew it was coming. You absolutely knew it was coming.
And they do. I know you haven't read episode 3 yet, Steve, but they do harken back to that in the third part. So comes full circle. I really like Shane's writing style. And look, hasn't he got one of the most distinctive art styles going around at the moment? Not just the simple lines that he draws, very much, as we've said before, in that Wilson McCoy style simplicity and effectiveness of his line work, but also the changes between the use of panels and the way that he has breakouts and borderless panels on every page, and the way he moves your eye around the page following the story is pretty cool.
Keeps it dynamic and energetic.
And then he uses like lots intense backgrounds like this here, but then he uses minimalist backgrounds, and it really he does a great job. I love these 3 pages here. So this one here where he walks up
32, 33 and 34 if you're playing along the
exactly. So thanks for that, Dan. This is in issue 1929, of course, and then when he calls out, and then the last one where he gets shot in the shoulder. It's just look, it's great. I really like it.
What about you there, Matt?
Well, look, I'm a bit biased because Shane's my mate, but I really, really love this story, and I found the whole thing thrilling. I've read it now a couple of times, and I just keep finding more things I like about it. And I want to assure Steve that the third part really is a fantastic climax. I think it's the strongest of the 3 parts.
Looking forward to that.
Part 1 starts off pretty quick. We get the Phantom. He meets these people. He's brought into this adventure. He's brought into this new realm he's never seen before, and immediately he meets up with new characters and a giant. So I think the first one sort of got my attention. I think you're right. The first one is where he meets the Queen, and I don't know if it was a little bit similar to the Phantom Menace, where where Padme is.
That's exactly where I went.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not sure. When I first read that, I didn't know where Shane was going with that, but I loved the scene where the Phantom helps out with the menial work, and they have that fantastic discussion, and there's like a lot of mutual respect. So while I was a bit unsure, and I think it was very obvious as well that it was the Queen, like immediately, but I don't think that's a criticism. It's just when you've got a short page count, you've got to get to the point straight away. But I love the characterization of the Phantom in that scene. It just showed basically that Shane knows the Phantom. He writes him like Duncan does. Like it really gets the personality. But I think the third act is just fantastic. The second act sort of meanders a little bit. I'm not really sure where it's going or why things are happening, but it all comes together so perfectly in the third act. And I actually wrote to Shane because I said I was really moved by the end of it. I was surprised at how emotional it was.
Yeah.
And I was really like...
You're soft like me, Matt. You like a good love story.
Well, I mean, I don't want to give it away for Steve, but it was really sad. It was heart-wrenching. And
I'm looking off screen, so I'm not reading the spoilers. So I'm just looking at your little postage stamp video on the side rather than looking at the full screen.
But well, you've read the original story, so you should know what happened.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
That's why you can watch the video that we've put online.
I'll just go back and read the story.
What about you, Dan? You enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's I enjoyed the whole way through, and the heartbreak of I've said before I didn't apologize. Oh well, I apologize for Matt for spoiling. I'll do the same to you, Steve. The heartbreak of the two of them in love with each other, but their duties require them to be apart and never to. There's a Shakespearean tragedy to that, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, I loved this scene here. Like in any good action movie, the Phantoms pull the arrow out, snap the arrow, beating up the bad guy, and then as soon as he gets hugged by the pretty girl, he's like, oh, the arm, he all of a sudden melts, and it's typical of the movies that we've probably all watched in the 80s and the 90s, where the pretty girl bandages him up, and then all of a sudden he's soft and he's in pain, but he was never in pain before. So I love that moment as well.
Very good. Yeah, I look forward to reading that.
I think that the pacing of it is wonderful too, because you see that the Phantom is going to be coming into conflict with this giant, and it could have easily been a 10-page battle with the giant, but the Phantom, he wraps it up pretty quickly, and he's disadvantaged because he's been injured, and the sheer size of this guy. But I really love that Shane kind of sped through that, which was satisfying as well. Yeah. But giving, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages to this, as you said, like this Shakespearean tragedy. It's I was thrilled with how well he pulled it off, and I had to write to him. I said, "This is just brilliant. I loved it." And
we knew what happened. Yet I don't know about you. It's like, I know what happened. I read the original. I know the original. But it's like you still... I was sitting there reading it and going, come on, change it. Like, I want a different ending. But I think his storytelling is great. Some of the, like this here where you've got the background again, we're talking about a lot of backgrounds in this podcast before the jungle and stuff like that. It's great. But then when he's just dealing with him and her, there's no backgrounds. It's just it is very good storytelling.
It draws the focus into the parts that are important.
Exactly. Yeah, very good.
Just while you're on page 30 and 31 there too, Germ, just above the jungle scene. You mentioned before about how the Phantom delivers someone to judgment. He doesn't make judgment himself. I thought this was really cleverly done, where he's looking into what the Queen's doing with regard to, the villain, and they are discussing what should be done for Azak. He sees that they're doing imposing their judgment, but we never find out what that judgment is. Quite likely in a culture like that, it's an execution, or God knows how horrific that execution might be. Burned alive was what he was trying to do to the Queen.
Yeah.
But where that's left to our imaginations, and it just again speaks to Shane's knowledge of the Phantom and the character, and the way things operate in that comic world.
Yeah, definitely.
On page 32, the first, I know you just closed it, but there's a picture of the Phantom crying. And I think, the only other time I can remember the Phantom crying is when he thought he had to put down Hero. And that was emotional.
That was it. I reckon also Archie. Did we actually see him crying, Archie?
The one that stands out for my mind is the I think it was a Glenn Ford cover when Lee Falk died. There's the Phantom is getting a tear on the front cover of that. Yeah,
but no, you're right. We don't see an emotional.
And I think that's a really iconic picture too, with her walking away and the Phantom holding the flower. They're manly tears,
Yeah. No, look, I reckon, and you've all said it. Shane understands the Phantom, and I think the free readers are, and we'll talk about you in a second, Matt, but I think free readers are stronger with having Shane writing and drawing stories, because, and he wrote to me today saying that he's got another 2 stories coming up. So with doing similar as this, filling in some holes, adding to some stories, adding new characters to an old story or something like that. So he's got other stories like this. And if they're as half as good as this, I think we're in for a treat.
You reckon this is his best work?
Ooh.
I think it's certain. I think it's probably the story of his that I've enjoyed the most. Maybe it's because I've read it most. It might be recency bias, but because I do like Shane's work as a rule. But I think this is his story that I've liked the most.
Now, at the risk of sounding like I'm sucking up, I did like his issue with Heloise's story. But I really liked, and I know that was yours and Matt's and Shane's, but I enjoyed that story because there was a different element of Heloise, and I really enjoyed the art. If it's a sole Shane Foley story,
that's what I mean.
I would say yes. But then my next favourite will be the Scorpia saga, and I liked that because that's how a King Features movie / Marvel style universe should be like. And I think Shane did it brilliant, drawing all these characters, different elements from different stories and bad guys and stuff. So I really liked what he did with Scorpia. But if we're talking solely Phantom story that he's solely worked on, I would have to agree with you, Dan. I think this is his best.
Very good. Okay. Now, moving on, we've got one more story left to go, and it just so happens to be Manhunt, done by the one and only Matt Kyme, who just happens to be here, if you're wondering who that other voice is. If you just tuned in, even though it's not like a radio or anything, you've probably gone from the start. No one starts a podcast halfway through. Unless they're listening to our podcast and realise that there's no point listening to the first 15 minutes as we're greeting and talking footy.
I don't think we did that today.
No, we didn't. Well, there's no footy. So Manhunt, and watch out, fellas, there is a lion loose in the jungle. Some lion who decided to take on an elephant, and he's now worse for wear, and he's after some easy prey. And that prey could be people stranded by a jeep, or patrolmen trying to find him, or even did he go for the Phantom or the Phantom? I can't remember. I've only just read it this evening too. Did he try to attack the Phantom or the Phantom?
Phantom went after him.
Phantom went after him with the dart.
I'll just cut in. It's good to see Matt, I know you're wearing your Chronicle Chamber wristband, but it looks like Kit's wearing his Chronicle Chamber wristband there as well on page 5. So it's good to see that everyone's wearing their wristbands.
I'm going to use that as a
way.
segue, Jim. Sorry, just to jump in, but I'm going to use that as a segue because one of the things I wanted to mention about the Death in Carpathia story, we've raved about Jonas Auden as a artist, but one of the things I've neglected to mention was we actually don't see the Phantom wearing either of his rings through that entire story, whether he's Mr. Walker or the Phantom. There's a couple where he's got like that lockpicking scene that we looked at extensively. You can see the blanks of his rings, but at no stage can you see the skull of the good mark. So that would be one little bit of feedback for Mr. Auden. Otherwise, perfect. But yeah. Anyway, you're right.
Sorry, Stephen, I cut you off, and then Dan
That's all right.
cut me off.
And then I went with
But I did like this page when we go back to the old X-Band radio. Yeah,
me too.
There's no digital tech here.
No mobile phone. I love it.
No MacBook Pro.
Actually, when I saw that, and I saw the young person sitting beside him, I thought, "Oh, this is a real throwback." Is that Rex right beside him? That's actually where I went first, until he said, "Oh, Kit." Oh, right.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, Matt, how did you go developing this story?
Well, this story I wrote at the same time period when I wrote issue of Heloise, which was way back before the pandemic, at the very beginning of 2020. January it was. I sat down and wrote both stories back to back. I think I was sort of working on both of them at the same time. Actually, I didn't finish one and then start the other. I had all these ideas. I really wanted to have 2 companion stories, a Heloise story and a Kit story. And I was thrilled that they both came out in the same year and not too far away from each other. So hopefully people, when they read this, they think back a little bit to the issue of Heloise. It's funny you picked up on the X-Band because I tried to have nothing in the comic that was modern. I've spoken to you guys about this before, that, in my little timeline, and I'm not like throwing this at anyone, but this story could take place in the 1960s. That's just the way I kind of see the Phantom, being active in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. By the 60s, Kit and Heloise would be in their teens. But I'm not trying to be controversial, and I'm not saying that's the new law. It's just I guess like a little what if the Phantom had aged in real time. So this could be read as a story in the 60s, or it could be read as right now. So even like their weapons, their car, the Jeep, their technology, everything is locked in the 60s. And it's actually the same with the issue of Heloise as well. I asked Shane not to have anything too modern. There's cameras, which are like 1960s vintage style. The vehicles, everything is 1960s.
Yeah, interesting. I love your line.
How long did it take to draw him?
Yeah, there's so much detail in your line.
Well, I had to sort of redeem myself, because the last time I did art, it got rejected. So this is my first published art since A Day at the Races, and obviously that was like an imitation of Ray Moore's style. So I wanted to set myself a challenge I wanted to see if I could get my own art style published in a Phantom comic. I didn't want to imitate anyone anymore. I wanted to be myself. And
so this is your art style? Because you're right, we haven't seen it before, have we?
Yeah, this is my art style.
It's really interesting you say that, because when realized it was your story, and I've opened up to the first page, and I thought, this doesn't look like what I've seen Matt do previously.
Yeah, and depending on what you've seen of me, if you've read The Demon, or if you've read Wrath of the Cursed or Bulletproof Kid, I do have a style that sort of bounces around. my comic art will suit the story. So Wrath of the Cursed, it looks like it could be a 1970s manga kind of Japanese art. And the Bulletproof Kid is a bit more of a Marvel DC superhero kind of thing. So with this story, I was really looking at my favorite Phantom artists like Hans Lindahl and Lebanon and Don Newton, and trying to like get the essence of those illustrators. I was looking at the way they did jungles and backgrounds, but I was also very conscious of not copying anything. I just want it to be my own story.
Yeah.
And there's all, like the Jeep and things like that. Obviously, I use photo reference. But yeah, I guess having had my last story, my Wilson McCoy inspired art rejected, I wanted to sort of bounce back and show that, look, I can draw. I can write and I can draw, and I hope people enjoy it.
Well, Matt, Jim mentioned the lion, but I think the animals across the board. We're looking at an elephant, the elephant takedown scene here, the giraffes in the background in a panel, even, Hero and the way that he's depicted. Like, your animals are, like Steve says, they don't look like they're by the same artist as the what we saw in Day of the Races. So yeah, it's I was blown away by the animals in particular. The skull cave scene that we're seeing there on page 5. Yeah, it's really remarkable.
Yeah, I really like your skull cave there. But yeah, no, the lion really really caught my eye, and there's a page here, this one here. I just love
page 19.
Yeah, page 19. I love the full panel of the Phantom jumping the lion, in a sense, doing what the lion's been doing to everyone else. But that's a great page, that one.
Yeah, and
when or if you ever sell it, I reckon that will be the first one that goes.
Well, that one's long gone.
Yeah, not surprised.
I like when it says you can smell a new smell. What's the what I'm looking for? But anyway, the look on the lion's face there. It shows lots of emotion for a lion. That's just
yeah.
Now, you can see his thought process.
Now, Matt, when I was reading this story, I had two things come to my mind. I would love to be able to get a little bit more detail on that if you don't mind. There's a 1960s story by Bill Lingnate, who did the story The Limper, with, I think it was a tiger that was tracking people in the grass, and I think your grass work's really good. There was a page up here, where was it? Let me find it. This page here, this panel here, where you've got the grass in the foreground with the shadows. That really captures the being lost in the grass. So I thought that was really good. And then there was also a 1996 movie, and I'm not sure if anyone remembers this, but The Ghost and the Darkness.
Yeah. I saw that at the drive-in.
Yeah, that's Ghost. Yeah, drive-in. If there's listeners to this who have no idea what Dan is just talking about, do yourself a favor and Google it. They were the best thing ever.
Well, and that movie title as well, The Ghost and the Darkness, doesn't that sound like a Phantom story?
It does, yeah. So was any of that any inspiration or anything with this story?
The comic story, the Legantic story, absolutely. The movie, not necessarily, although I have seen the movie. I saw it back in the 90s when I was a teen. And as I was writing the story and drawing the story, I was getting flashes of the movie. But I can't really remember the plot of the movie other than that there was a lion and it was taking workers near, I think it was in the long grass near a train.
Yeah.
And some hunters were brought in to hunt it down. So the biggest influence really was the Limper, the story The Limper.
Yep.
And that was a story which I wasn't really aware of until fairly recently. I'd never seen it before, and I recently got a whole bunch of back issues, and I found that story and read it. and I loved it. And I just thought that the one thing that I didn't like about it was at the end, the Phantom put down the animal, which is fair enough. It was suffering, but I just thought, given the Phantom now is known for conservation, caring for animals, if there was any way the Phantom could help an animal, he would. We know that.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll do a story where I want the Phantom and Kit to be together, and I want the Phantom to be explicitly training Kit, because I don't think we see that enough. We see that the Phantom will die and the Son will take over, but we need to show the Phantom training his children, Kit and Heloise.
Yeah.
And that was basically the crux of both stories: the Phantom and Heloise on an adventure, the Phantom and Kit on an adventure. So I concocted a few things. I had the bank robber, that little scene,
Bonnie and Clyde.
that subplot. Yeah, that's right. The two patrolmen. I tried to think of a few elements that could all go together, sort of like a Seinfeld episode. There's all these different elements, but they all work together in unison. But yeah, the important thing for me at the end was that the lion is not shot. The lion is taken to Eden and cared for. And also that the Kit isn't just following the Phantom and doing everything that he's told. Kit is actually making decisions, and the Phantom is actually taking a step back and letting the Son lead, like physically, like he leads him through the jungle. The Phantom allows Kit to do that, and then the Phantom multiple times asks Kit his opinion. What do you think we should do now? So we're seeing a young Phantom Kit.
I love this page here, page 9, where Kit and Heloise, where Kit talks about how him and Heloise used to run off and explore the treks and all that. And then he was like, "Oh yeah, Mum never knew." And then the Phantom's like, "Yeah, no, she used to follow you. She, remember she was a jungle. She was in the jungle before you were even born." Yeah. It's just
it really humanises it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it also, the thing that I like about it is same as in the issue of Heloise's story. It builds to the character and the strength of Diana, even though we actually don't see her in any of the stories. She's strengthened, and she's got in my opinion, she's shown who she truly is, even though we never see her. So I think that was quite clever as well.
Yeah, thanks. I can't not mention Diana in my stories.
You have a bit of a crush on her?
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, my first story, Day at the Races, was basically a Diana adventure. Like the Phantom just happened to be there. And then Diana and Heartbreakers Gang was all about her as well, donning the uniform. And yeah, I'm glad that you noticed what I did with Heloise. Diana featured in the first couple of scenes, or the first scene, but doesn't appear in it. But really, the whole story is about Heloise has learned equally from her mother as she has from her father. And the father is noticing these qualities, the same qualities that drew him to Diana in the first place.
Yeah.
And he basically says that, Diana is his, well, I think
inspiration
because Heloise is asking, he tells Heloise that he's much more inspired by Diana than Julie Walker and these other more sort of heroic characters. And that's sort of because Diana, she's not really, she's not a pirate queen or anything like that. She was a New York socialite, but she's very clever, and she's got a lot of skill. So yeah, that sort of shone through in here. Diana doesn't feature in this one at all, but I wanted to throw that scene in to show that she's a jungle woman. She's tough.
Yeah. Now,
can I?
Sorry, you go, Dan.
I guess along those lines, Matt, and I know that Jim just recently did a podcast with a couple of with Robert Armand and Mikael talking about the political nature of the Phantom in Sweden through the 1970s. when you draw or write or conceive this story like this, do the politics of that sort of stuff like someone might look at this, read this story and go, oh, this is woke Phantom, where he's not going to kill the lion, and the Bonnie and Clyde characters are equals in every way, and we've got these really positive references to female characters and all this sort of stuff. Oh, it's a modern woke Phantom. Is that something that you think about or concern yourself with, or do you just write the Phantom as you know him to be?
Look, I don't consider that for a split second. To be honest, I'm not trying to push any agenda. I just want to tell a story about my favorite character. You know, I don't aspire to anything above telling good Phantom stories. You know, I don't want to. I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm naive to issues in the world, but the Phantom to me is escapism, and I think the family of the Phantom, you know, Diana and the kids, that's really what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on showing the Phantom as a good father, as a good role model, showing the kids as independent and strong, and showing Diana how I always show her as super tough. So yeah, I don't sit down and think, all right, I've got to write a story about a strong woman. I'm writing about Diana. She's already strong.
Yeah.
You don't have to try, it's just already there.
Yeah. And these stories write themselves. Like when you know the characters, I feel it's probably the same for Duncan and for Shane and others, that, you know, you love the character so much, you know the character so well, it just comes out.
Yeah.
And as far as, like, you know, the not killing the animal, you know, I guess that wasn't a political message either. That was just what the Phantom would do and what I would like to see happen.
I must say, I feel like it was probably ambitious for the Phantom to knock out this nearly man-eating lion, and then hope that when that lion wakes up on Eden, it's not going to just immediately slaughter the other goats and giraffes and antelope that are wandering Eden. But you know, he's a master trainer, so
the lion and the tiger will sort
for
them
the
out.
lion.
Well, you don't have to worry about that because Archie's already done his
he's got his little whispering in the woods, which calms the line. Now, what I found interesting, and you raised the podcast, which will be the podcast after this, so episode 234, is Robert in that podcast talks about how when they were, I guess, transitioning the Phantom to be Swedish, which is the title of the podcast, people would actually write in and say, Lee Falk made this mistake, it should have been like this. And when you know, it amazingly dovetails in with what you've done, Matt, because you've kind of said that the Phantom killed the lion in the Limpus story, and in your story he saves the lion. It's almost like you went ahead in time, listened to the podcast, went back, wrote the story of that, where you've corrected what Lee Falk did wrong by killing the lion, and you've kind of corrected it in your story. So it's amazing storytelling, that you can predict the future. I think you've done a great job.
No, no, not
correcting Lee Falk mistakes. You've done a good job.
I'm always the Lee Falk defender here. I know that, but he was a writer of his time, and it's not so much a mistake. That's just how it was. And you know, adventure stories, and you know, at that time, he was still pretty progressive. But you know, man-eating lions and tigers and bears, there was no other solution for him. You've got to get rid of dangers to humans.
But anyway,
also, I wonder if he had have written that story now, would it get past King Beaches?
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's the real reason that he saved the lion, because I knew it wouldn't get approved otherwise. In the first draft, he shot it. Not really.
But anyway, more about the Phantom politics and being Swedish, becoming Swedish, in the next podcast, which is episode 234. It is a cracker podcast. everyone will enjoy that. So we won't disclose any more about that now.
Can I ask you a couple more questions? Or actually, I've got a comment and a question, if you don't mind, Matt, and it's about the artwork on this occasion. So you may be able to pull it back up for us, Germ, but particularly the work with the around the guns, the Bonnie character, if you like, she had the tranquilizer rifle. I just really like the angles that you drew from, like looking under. From behind and to the side, just looking over her shoulder or under her arm, sort of thing, as she's taking aim, and then so probably
Page
actually, if
13.
you go back, Jim, on page 11, I think you got a shot there. We go all around it on page 11. There, we're coming sort of from the front. Next page over, Jim, on page 13 from the side. Page 14, it must be. Oh, actually, at the top of that from the side as well. And there we are on page 14, coming over her shoulder. And I just love that sort of circular work that you did there, coming around with the camera, if you like. And then the bottom left corner there on page 14, the Phantom shooting the gun out of her hands. That's just I guess it's your take on a really iconic Phantom moment, shooting the gun out of someone's hands.
Yeah, that's right. And I wanted to have like that ruins the rifle. So
yes,
the rifle can't be used anymore. You see,
and I love that reference to it later in the story.
And page 15.
Yeah, I might get you if you turn back to page 12. That point there was supposed to be the end of part 1.
Okay.
Because when I pitched the story to Frew, Dudley had said that they're currently looking for short stories. You know, can I write a 10-page story? And that was the same thing with Kid and Heloise. The issue of Heloise. I had these ideas and I sent them in, and they said, "Listen, we're not looking for full stories anymore. Can you write it up in 8 to 10 pages?" And I simply can't. I can't tell a story so briefly. So I said, "What about I do like a 3-parter for the kitten, the issue of Heloise?" And with this story, I thought about it. I thought it's not as complicated as the issue of Heloise. There's less things going on. I can probably split this into 2 parts. So in the page before that, on page 11, we see that's that scene you were talking about, Dan, where she's aiming the rifle.
Yep.
Phantom has caught the guy. Page 12 was showing how the lion was now starting to stalk those blokes as they're going into the long grass.
So both halves of the story are on a cliffhanger there, aren't they?
Yeah. So it should have said to be continued, and then there's a big space above her on page 13. That's where it was going to say the Manhunt Part 2.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
that's funny. Yeah, because you see that and you go, that is a big open space there. It makes sense now that you actually intended to have a title.
Yeah. Hey, I'll share something else with you. If you turn to page, let's see, page 10.
Yes.
Now, do you see the Phantom in panel 3?
Oh, now I'm looking. I hadn't.
On page 10. Maybe zoom in if you can on the middle.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
Oh,
there you go.
Well done.
So I sent through a lettered version of this to Frew. Actually, what I did, I sent them the art, the unlettered art, and I was worried that it was going to take a long time for this to get lettered and published. So I took it upon myself to contact my friend Graham, who did the lettering. And so Graham did it, and he did a wonderful job. And this is the version that we're looking at. And I sent those pages into Frew and said, just to make things easier for you, it's ready to go. It's ready to print. It's ready to be sent off to King Features for approval, you know. And as things do, you know, that was forgotten or overlooked, and Frew had it lettered. I'm not sure exactly who lettered it, but they did a good job. But one of the things I noticed is that they lettered over the top of the Phantom on that panel.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, he was completely covered over. So I wrote to Dudley and said, look, you know, the letter has done a good job. However, I'm not sure if you recall, but I've already sent you a lettered version. And so luckily they went with the original version, which is
Yeah,
what you've
wow.
got.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why we like getting creators on. You know, whether it's a full dedicated podcast or just jumping on with the comics and news, is because you learn these cool little tidbits and sneak behind the curtain and stuff, which you've shown us. We've had Dudley on, we've had Shane on, and you know, Duncan. So a lot before, it just adds something to the podcast. So I hope our listeners, I hope you enjoyed the exploration behind this story as well. Dan, I think you said you had a comment that you wanted, or did you have a question?
So that was the comment before. The question actually refers to the cover, Matt, and I really like the concept behind the cover, the profile phantom, the shadow, and the lion, which again is just a magnificent drawing of a lion coming through grass. I was just curious that you weren't more zoomed in on the face, like filling the page a little bit more. It just seems that there's more blank space than you might have. Was there a decision made about how tight that zoom was, or?
Yeah, that's exactly. That's how I sent it to Frew. Frew actually Glenn made a slight change. My original picture, which you can see on my Instagram, the background was all one shade.
Okay.
And a decision was made to do that gradient across. But the cropping, or the size of it, the composition, I should say, that was how I sent it in. And I don't know, I actually drew lots and lots of different covers for this one. Initially, I wanted to have the Phantom and Kit on the cover, and I wanted it to be kind of similar to an image I'd drawn of the Phantom and Heloise. But that cover, which I'd previously drawn for that issue, had been rejected, so I wasn't too sure about
going in confident.
Yeah. My confidence had taken a bit of a hit on that one. I had an image with the Phantom and Kit holding a rifle, but that didn't seem right. I didn't want Kit holding a rifle on the cover, and I just couldn't get three elements: the lion, the Phantom, and Kit all working for some reason.
Yeah.
And I was running out of ideas, but this, you know, you guys will know I'm a teacher. I'm an art teacher, and of one of the year 8 projects that we do is to do overlapping 2 photos in Photoshop, doing like this double exposure sort of thing. And so I got a picture of a lion, and I drew up a picture of the Phantom, and I overlapped them in Photoshop, got it just how I wanted it, and then I traced over that same picture in Procreate. And that's basically the influence of Grange, because I had lunch with Grange, and I said to him, how do you do your covers? They're so unbelievable. You know, you must have all this whiz-bang gear. And he basically told me that recently he's shifted away from using his high-end, high-tech stuff, and he's just been using Procreate on his iPad. And I said to him, yeah, but you must have like a pretty fancy iPad. He says, no, just a normal iPad. Procreate is a $15 software package that you download once. All you need is an iPad, Procreate, which costs $15, and an Apple Pencil. So I went home that day, downloaded the app, and that's my first digital cover.
Yeah, I really like the cover.
Thank you.
It's I like it.
I was worried about it, Jermaine. I actually sent it to a few people and said, do you think this is going to get approved? Like, it's a bit different. It's a bit it might be a bit too designy or artsy-fartsy. And, you know, I looked at the existing Frew covers and I thought it's different. It's definitely it's either going to look fantastic on the shelves or it's going to be a complete failure. And as I said, like Glenn did that light to dark gradient. But yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled with it. When I went and saw it on the shelf, I thought, wow, that's like, I feel really proud of that. It's really cool.
What was Frew's reaction when you showed it to him?
Dudley loved it. You know, I sent it to him, and because he asked me if I would do the cover.
Yeah.
And you know, previously I'd had a bad experience doing a cover because it was just flatly rejected, and I wasn't given a chance to do another one. There was no feedback, so I thought, oh, okay, sure, I'll try.
Yeah, throw you in the deep end.
Yeah. In fact, I should tell you this one has been the easiest one from start to finish. And that's from Frew, and that's from King Features.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Is that I mean, do you put that down to runs on the board now? Like, you're not the new kid coming out with they know who you are. They know that you're not actually out there to harm the character. You're actually on the right track.
No, I don't know. I mean, I try not to think that way, because you know, you get paranoid if you do. Yeah, because you know, we've spoken. I've had a rough time getting my stories over the line, but each time it's been worth it, and I've got a lot of positive comments from people about the story. So I feel like what I'm producing is pleasing people, but just hitting brick wall after brick wall after brick wall just to get them out there. And so this one, you know, I did the art, and in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm sure this is going to get rejected. And then the same thing with the cover. I thought, there's no way this is going to get approved.
Because it's different.
Well, it's different.
But I think that's what works well. Like, and I think that's one thing that Frew have done a really good job at, and that is bringing different artists, different creators to the comic. Like, you know, it meets multiple needs. Like, you've got Granger's style is different to your style, and then you've got Jamie Johnson's style, which is different to Jeremy McPherson's style.
And Paul Mason, let's talk about that. His style, it doesn't get any more, you know, atypical from Phantom. But you know, he's been at it for so long, and people are now appreciating and loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to share this one last thing. I talked about the movie, The Ghost in the Darkness. This was what I remember, this movie poster, I guess you could see, with the, obviously it's different with yours, but it's using the silhouette of the two lions with the people.
Oh, I didn't even notice there were two lines there.
Yeah, it's a really good cover to be or really good poster, to be honest. But when I saw that, it was, you know, it reminded, when I saw the cover, that's what reminded me of the movie. Was obviously you got the lion and stuff like that, but I love the silhouette with the two images and all that.
Yeah, no, I've got no recollection of that. I saw the movie back in the day, but
yeah,
I should have done some research, because maybe I could have done it like that and had the Phantom and Kit in it.
Got him in.
Not enough of a time traveller to have heard this.
You spent all your time travelling on that.
Yeah, not this time. No, the flux capacitor broke.
Awesome. Maybe you could use it for the Phantom with the daily story coming up as well.
You know, my next story, I think, is going to excite people, because, you know, I've got my Diana story, I've got my Heloise story, my Kit story. So now I'm doing my His story.
Hey, yeah, His.
Awesome. The Phantom's going to go adventuring with His, and they're going to bond.
That sounds fun.
Is that for His's Bucks Night?
Yeah. Any way to work him into it. No, that's not going to happen. Don't worry. You can see people starting to shift in their seats. Don't worry. No His story.
Sean Bassett, I know, and Nick, and I think there's big fans of his, so I'm sure they probably got a little bit upset just then. So
yeah, sorry,
good
guys.
work.
Thank you very much, Matt.
I gave you Steggy, but I'm not going to give you his.
Oh yeah, Steggy was great.
You
Thank
should
you for
chuck him
sharing.
in almost like just in one story. Just in one story.
Oh, look, I draw his fairly often just for fun and put on Instagram just for reaction. You might have seen recently I did like the Fantastic Four, and I
Yeah,
had Phantom, Kit, and Heloise all dressed in Phantom gear, and he's
that is the
wearing like
thing.
the Phantom undies,
Yeah.
creeping up on the Croco. I
Is
guess,
this on Insta? Is it? I better.
yeah. If you go to Matt Kyme Comics, there's the plug. Yeah, it's based on an old Fantastic Four cover where the Fantastic Four are approaching the Hulk, who's hiding behind his pillar. So I've redrawn it as, like a team of Fantastic Four, the Phantom, Kit, Heloise, and his as a team, and the Hulk has been replaced by a Croco monster. Because I was thinking there aren't any other monsters apart from his, are there? I mean, there's
No.
lots of people who've dressed up as monsters, but I couldn't think of any other monsters.
Yeah, no, the Croco People is a good one.
Yeah, very good. Well, I don't know if it's coming up on the screen there, but
Yeah.
there we go.
It's pretty stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. I
So-
really appreciate your time, Matt. That was really
Oh,
good.
my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for all your insights and what have you on the stories and for giving your opinions on other stories as well. It's been great.
It's my absolute pleasure. I loved it.
Okay, so thank you very much, Matt, for joining us there. And now we go over to Mikael to give his reviews on the latest Phantoman issues. Take away, Mikael.
Welcome back for another Phantoman review with me, Mikael. This time it is issue 20 of 2022. It has a Henrik Sahlström cover, and the main story that is depicted here is called Deadly Dinosaurs. It's by Bernd Friends and art by Carlos Padrazzini. I'm really bad at pronouncing names, as most of us are. It has quite nice pacing. It's about these bad guys who sells dinosaur skeletons on the black market, and I enjoy the art style of this relatively new artist for Phantom. Then we have the concluding part of the Red Pirates, the Dogs of Sea Dogs, something like that. I have enjoyed these stories, and I hope they will continue doing these Red Pirate stories. Then we have preview for the next issue. We will have the first part of the Legends of the Vultures by Pid Andersson, and a new side story, also one of these French-Belgium album thing it looks like. That will be out next week. That's great. Here we have Phantoman 21 of 2022 with an amazing cover by Luca Arbara with a lot of suspense and some popping colors, I would say. I really enjoy this cover. It's a good one. Let's see what this has in store. So it is the Year of the Vultures. We will get the first part of the Saga of the Vulture, The Haunted Castle by Pid Andersson and Anthony Spey. And I think this is my favorite Frew story, actually. The all of the three parts together, that is. And it looks amazing in color. I must say that I am... it really... I thought it looked good in black and white when I read it in Frew, but this really takes it to the next level, in my opinion. And I love this bantering with the host and the inn. I think that's fun. Yeah. So a great... If you're a Swede, you should really pick this up. And the next two issues, you will get the whole origin story of the vultures. Now we get some fact text written by Andreas. And we will have here a new side comic, Libertalia. And I think it's a French album series about the founding of the mythic pirate Utopia. I thought it was a bit hard to come into for me with all the characters, but I am really intrigued by the subject of Libertalia after playing Uncharted 4 actually. So it was cool to have a story about it, and looking forward to see how it unfolds later. Then we have what's in the next issue, 22-23, in a few weeks. It is the second chapter of the Saga of the Vultures, the concluding part of this Libertalia, a rerun of when the Swedish king died, Gustav III, by Norman Walker and Kari Leppänen. And I guess this is a shorter story by Jimmy Wallin and Anna Weatherly, and An Afternoon in the Jungle. Yeah, looking forward to that. This time we have issue 22-23 of 2022. It has this grim cover depicting the first vulture made by Henrik Sahlström on this double issue. On the editorial page we get some text about the Gothenburg Book Fair with images of Robert Amann and Pidde Andersson and Sture Hegerfors and Phantom himself. The main story is the second part of the Saga of the Vultures, created by Pidde Andersson and art by Anthony Spey. It was first published in Frew, and this part really goes into the origins of the Vultures and explains about the founder. It's awesome stuff, again, following the first great part in the last issue, and again the coloring is so great in this. After that there is the second part and concluding part of Libertalia. Side comic, I think it's okay, but I think I enjoyed the Red Pirate side comic a bit more, I think. After that we have a 3-page short story written by Jimmy Wallin. I believe this is his second short Phantom story, and it has art done by Anna Weatherly. I really enjoyed the concept of Phantom World, and I think it's great that we get something that reminds of that again in the comic book. Last story is The King is Dead, a reprint of an old Team Fantomen story from 1987. It's written by Norman Walker and has art by Kari Leppänen. It is a historical story about what the Phantom was doing while the King of Sweden was assassinated in 1792. It's great to see this in color. I think it is one of those classic stories. I had it quite close in memory when I was reading it, and I enjoy it quite a bit. Then we have this spread with some information about the wardrobe the king wore when he got shot, and in real life that is, and cool collaboration with where these clothes are in a museum. And then it's the preview of the next issue. We will get the concluding story of the Saga of the Vultures, and we will get the daily story Jungle Mystery that has not yet been published in Fantomen. It's by Tony DePaul, George Olsen and Keith Williams. Looking forward to that. So that's a nice... This time it's a big publication. Heart of Darkness, given out by Egmont. It's really thick. It has this cool wraparound cover by Luca Arbata, if I'm not misremembering. Let's take it out and see how it looks. Quite cool. I think it's very inviting. You want to see what happens with everything of this, but it also looks really, really cool without the cover, with the Brotherhood's insignia in relief, and you have the title there, and it's really heavy, and it is only published in 1000 and they are all numbered here, so that's cool. Also we have this foreword where Andreas talks about what he knows from Klaus, since Klaus couldn't write it himself, sadly. And we have some of these Hans Lindahl covers as dividers here that are from the Krönika when they were last printed in Sweden. And I mean, just feeling the paper and the weight, this must be the most luxurious Fantomen release made in Sweden that I know. I can't think of anything else. And with the numbered, yeah, it's quite cool. And then it is the comics. It starts off with Livets Eld, that was made quite many years before the actual Heart of Darkness. It's from 85, while Heart of Darkness started in 94. And yeah, this is like a prologue, or yeah, he first wrote this and then he fleshed it out somehow. And to be honest, this was the first time I read all of these within a short amount of time. And as Andreas wrote in the foreword, that Klaus did not really know where it would end up when he started, but in a nice way that makes the story less predictable. And I'm not sure I mentioned it, Klaus Rametti wrote everything. The first story has art by Hans Lindahl, and Heart of Darkness, and the ending story that's called something else, that are about this painting that is kind of a spin-off, not that one, in the Heart of Darkness. That is also, all of those are art by Jon Boyks. It's hard to pronounce for me to not know how to pronounce it. Yeah, there's one of those Lindahl paintings. About the story, I like it. It's very long. It's the longest story I've read in one go, and it's really cool. I think it's very inspired by Indiana Jones. There's many elements that you can see from the Indiana Jones movies, like with the Ark of Covenant and Nazis and going to Jerusalem and the staff and lot of stuff that are elements from Indiana Jones, but it does not mimic it in the story. It's just inspired in what I think. Let's see here. My big caveat that I have with a lot of Phantom publication is that they chose to go with black and white. I would have loved it in color, but I know there's a lot of Swedes who want to read their Phantom in black and white, and I guess they want to cater to them as well, since we get the color in the regular comic book, so it's understandable. But for me, I would have enjoyed it even more in full color. But hopefully this is only the first in many books of this style. I want more of them. They feel great, they look great, it's nice to read. Highly recommend it if you know any Swedish, that is, or if you just want something big in your bookcase. Is it already time for another Fantomen review? But this time it's not a regular issue, it's this year's softcover album, The Nemesis of Evil. It has this nice spine, nice cover by Luc Arbara. It looks really inviting, and it's like this girl has some gloss on it, and the other thing is matte. Yeah, and the logo is also glossed. I think that looks cool. Here it's also the same. This is a bit more matte, and this is glossy. And for quite a few years, Egmont has been publishing these berry collections with vague theme and all printed in black and white. This year is nothing different. This year's theme is stories that features the blue dragon bar, as far as I can tell. Test is forward by Andreas Eriksson, then a bit more small article also by Andreas Eriksson. Then we have Star of Bengala by Everything Will Be by Lee Falk and Cyberries. I might not say it every time. From 1975. And then the next story is also called Star of Bengala. Where is it? Yes, the Star of Bengala from 78. This is Sundays, but yeah, they're quite small, these panels. Then it is Gurus, Jungles, Muggers. It's from the 80s, beginning of the 80s. I will not dive deep into these stories. They are quite easy to get hold by if you are interested both in Sweden and in Australia. Well, there was some more stories. Let's see. Here we have The Return of the Guru's Mob from the 81 and 82. Yeah, but I mean, the paper quality is quite thick. I like that. The Necklace of Solomon from 83. Was that the last one? Yeah, it probably was. Yes. Cool, yeah, that's all from me. Happy phantoming.
Thanks, Mikael, for your reviews. Please note that we have not forgotten our Indian fans, but Ankit has experienced some technological difficulties and has been busy with Regal. So we have a new reviewer who is in the middle of reviewing the missing issues. So we please thank you for your patience. And moving on now, we're all set and ready to go to the newspaper stories. We're all good?
Yeah. No, I'm
Okay.
looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it. So first up, we've got the Sundays. We've got Return of the Temple of the Gods. These stories started in the newspapers, then in Team Fanaman, and now again in the newspaper stories. And we have, for those who came in late, video online. Thank you, Jen, for bringing that up. We're recording this on a Saturday, so usually we record on a Sunday, so the latest Sunday is fresh in my head. But it's been a week since I've read it.
Sorry about that. But we're actually starting to. The story seems to be moving along a little bit.
Well, it's moving through the corridor, that's for sure, and getting deeper and deeper into this Temple of the Gods, further than Phantoms have before. Nearly.
Yeah. What I've kind of liked about it is the fact that obviously we talked about that there's been past stories in newspaper stories, Team Phantom stories in Phantom Comics and Free Comics. Is Tony DePaul's really caught everyone up to speed with what's necessary for this story during the travels, and he's done it well by bringing Diana along so he can tell Diana, who at the same time is telling us what is happening.
It's a good narrative device, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of feels like we've now been caught up, and now hopefully we're going to see the actual story, if that makes sense.
And I agree. It's great to see us getting into the nuts and bolts. We're finally past all the introductory stuff, but just this page that you've got at the moment, German. I can't see the. Was it
the 9th of the 10th? Yeah, 9th of October.
9th of October, the strip from the 9th of October. It's interesting because we've talked about Jeff Weigel and his Generations poster, particularly for Frew and some of the work that he's done in terms of. At fans' commissions in a sense, and then endorsed by Frew. Here's what the Phantom's costume might look like over the generations. We've seen the whole of costumes. Is this the first time we've actually seen one of those costumes in action as a Phantom story? I feel like it is. And
what about the Visitor? There was a few in the
You've got a much
Visitor-
better recall of stories. That's why I asked you the question.
Well, that's where it was first coming out with the Hall of Costumes, isn't it?
Yeah, in the Hall of Costumes was the Visitor, and there was a couple of flashbacks where he was in action.
Okay, so all right, so not the first time, but certainly it's an
But
action
he's continued
sequence.
it.
Yeah, featuring the Phantom in ye olde time version of the Phantom costume. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, Stephen, do you want to go?
I think I'm on record in saying that the Phantom's always worn the same
Yeah.
costume, and that's the way that I prefer my Phantom. I don't like it, but it's not gonna ruin the story for me.
Yeah. I think I'm very similar as you, Steve. I prefer I don't mind things like the belt being changed, the cape, but the costume's the costume. The costume stays. I understand it. I think yes, it makes more sense. It's a great gimmick for Frew to sell cards and posters and stuff like that. But I can live with it. But I wouldn't.
You wouldn't like to see everyone doing it?
No, I don't think I would. And
even if it does make sense, because it does make sense,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
And we've seen more and more of it. Like from my understanding, the first time we actually saw timepiece Phantom costumes, maybe is a good word for it, was actually from Dynamite Entertainment. Dynamite was actually the first people to do it. Grange,
Last Phantom.
No, King's Watch. King's Quest, King's Watch, that whole saga. I've actually reread that whole arc to try and.
Arc Landing was definitely the artist, whichever the series was.
No, I think it might have actually been. Maybe it was Mark, but I think it might have actually been Brent Shuvanova as well. I think he might have been the first person to actually do it.
We'll have to go to the records after the podcast to this one. The sheep stations are on it.
In regards to the Phantom costume, like obviously weapons would change over time, and boots I think have always developed over change, even in folk stories. But as to the costume itself, like the way Mr. Walker dresses, absolutely would change. In the oldie time, he'd put an extra cape on or a different type of hat. But the actual costume was the costume underneath. So,
I think this is a close enough rendition of and we're still looking at that page. I think this is close enough to go, you know what, that is the same Phantom costume. It's not like you're going, who is that? Is that Captain America? Is that Spider-Man?
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely the Phantom.
What I find funny is usually the people that don't mind laws being changed, i.e. Jermaine and Stephen, as much, are like, no, it needs to stay the same. Yet the one that is always, nope, that's not what Lee Falk did, is the one that's actually pushing for the costume to be changed. So it's a little bit ironic.
I probably just don't mind it as much as you guys.
So do you guys actually have any of the cards that he did? Did you guys get any of the original artwork?
Yes.
Yes, I got one.
Which Phantom did you get?
I can't remember. I think it was the first Phantom and the 16th or 15th or something.
And?
I was lucky enough to pick up the Julie Walker card.
Ah, very good. I was just asking because I wondered if you were going for, the oldie style, different type costumes, or if you went for the more modern.
I love the way we're saying ye oldie.
Well, I went with 19. So the costume's the costume, but the cars are classic.
Anyway, look, it's a great discussion. It'll be interesting to see if Mike Manley follows suit, and if any other artist outside of the newspaper follows suit.
He hasn't, I suppose, yet, and we've seen that. And I know we've got a whole podcast devoted to the end of the Daily Story, and we'll talk about it very briefly shortly, I'm sure. But Certainly, the scene where the Phantom was dying and his ancestors all stood around and told him to stand up.
Yeah.
They all were dressed
Yeah.
exactly the same. There was no historical variations
Yeah.
there.
True.
And with the Sunday story, and Tony says this a lot, there's the more fantastical elements of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, in the costume, being
More
a bit
room to have
different.
fun.
Anyway, moving on.
Actually, I mean to ask you, Jen, where do you get these strips from? Because when you go on Comics Kingdom, we miss out on the title.
Yeah,
spread.
look, there's this URL that I found, which is I don't know where I found it, but I bookmarked it, and it still
Just
keeps
always
them
pops
in
up.
this format,
Well, that's nice.
which is I prefer this format.
Yeah,
I have noticed, like with other King Features stories, that like Hagar and stuff still has that yellow bar across the top like they do with the Phantom, and it's all vertical.
I'll send you the URL. Look, if there's anyone else out there that's desperate to read it in this format as well, send us an email.
It's not
at
necessarily
our email.
the format. It's just I don't want to miss out on the little.
But look, I'll send you the URL. If there's anyone else out there, send us an email, chroniclechamber@gmail.com, and I'll send you the URL as well, and tell you how to get it.
Okay.
I 100% agree. I prefer to see it landscape like this, and I know that this is how Jeff draws it as well, because when he does have originals for sale, they come exactly like this. But obviously they've been turned into portrait format for reading on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And and that is just how people are going to be consuming their comics more and more. You know, they're no longer in newspapers. You've got to go to Comics Kingdom to see most of them. So
there's Dan again being the postmodernist, and Tremaine and Stephen being
I prefer the tradition. I prefer it like this. But actually, I don't mind reading it on the phone or whatever. Horizontally or vertical, whatever it is, vertically. But what they used to do is have it like this, and then you click on it, and then it will go vertical, and you could scroll.
Right.
And if they were smart, you could use a little bit of technology, basically, which would decide whether you're viewing it on your phone, which would then go portrait, and then if you're looking at it on your or if you're turning it, it would then change. You could do something like that, but anyway, we're getting away from the story. Look, this is the last one we've got at the time of recording. I'm intrigued of where this is going. They're coming upwards. You can see it. Basically, they're walking upstairs. That looks like a fresh kill down the bottom there.
The body hasn't decomposed. This is new
current events.
Current events. That's what he says.
So I'm intrigued of where this is going. I really feel like we're about to get some action. We're about to get some stories. One thing I am intrigued is we've seen, I'll just go back. You see the third Phantom, who I believe from memory is the first time that a Phantom has dealt with these characters, is he was very, I'm going to kill you, basically, user of abominations and all that. And then you're basically seeing throughout the generations, the Phantom goes more on the side of these, whatever you want to call them, and creatures, and helps them against. So he kind of swings his allegiance, or he kind of feels sorry for them. He learns more about who they are, what they are, and it's like, no, I'm fighting on their side. I fight against injustice, against cruelty, and so I'm intrigued in looking at it from that perspective of where the Phantom across the generations has moved his feelings towards these, from where we see the third Phantom and to where we're going to see it now with the 21st Phantom. And then I'm intrigued on how this is going to happen. So it's just something that I've noticed when I was rereading all the stories to put together the video clip for those who came in late. You can see a real switch on how the Phantom views these.
In that case, we'll have him stabbing them with tranquilizer darts.
Moving them off to Eden.
Go full 2022.
so they can hang out with his. Matt Kyme can write stories about his and these characters going off on adventures.
Absolutely.
Okay, looking forward to tomorrow's edition.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Daily 261, The Phantom's End. We've done a full podcast on that one, so there's no real point in going on with that one.
We'll make this podcast long if we talk about that again.
Yep. So moving on to Daily 262, which is The Breakout. So the Phantom has now listened to Moz's story and is now on his way to try to avoid this fate that Moz has seen. And he's got Devil, he's got Hero, things are turning out differently. And he's already met up with a character that before he meets up with the character, the flaming skeleton has reappeared in his dreams, and he's fought the skeleton in the dreams, and I'd like to say he's overcome him, but the skeleton's still trying to get the last word in and saying, won't be silenced or something. I can't remember what he quite said.
Yeah, it's
to say you haven't seen the end of me.
Dodge your fate is basically the message I took away from the flaming skeleton.
It's a real it's horrific, I guess you could say, is where basically, I love the fact that like he's fighting it. You see Devil taking a bite out of his femur. He won't have to worry about feeding him tonight. But he gets it and gives him a good old punch. I wonder, can you skull mark a skull?
I did like the little skull mark on the was it a skull mark? I'm pretty sure it was a skull mark on the rock that he was sleeping on. Is that
that's the
little phantom hiding spot
on his saddle?
Call it?
That was his saddle. I thought it was a rock. There you go.
Nice little detail on Hero saddle.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that
I like this page.
Fate's trying to steer him one way and say it's always going to happen, but your life's not predetermined. You're going to make your own fate. Yes, certain elements are going to happen, but it's not always going to turn out the way that someone else has seen it.
I wonder if this also shows us the frailty of the Phantom's emotions at the moment, in the sense that the Phantom, tried to change, by, obviously Babadan and Diana rescued the Phantom before. Then he's got this. Then he moves Kit over. Then Old Man Moz has tried to tell the story. Now he's trying to change his fate. And now, but I guess it's showing his frailty in the sense of like, am I able to do this? Is this prophecy from this skeleton? And then that's probably why he's now dreaming about it, because I don't know. I just really wonder if we're seeing a different side of the Phantom here, one that is starting to self-doubt.
Well, certainly not on the face of it, but perhaps behind the mask, I suppose. But and that's the sense we get from his dreams. But he certainly wakes up and is prepared to go the next day, just as confident and determined as ever. And as Steve was getting towards, has actually made decisions about changing the track that he was on, and I guess the order that he meets people, so that pretty key moments of the original prophecy from Moz can't possibly come true.
Yeah, and you mentioned self-doubt. I think he's overcoming that. Anything that's holding him back. And moving on from the Flaming Skull, he's gone to visit the vet, and mentions that the vet, say partner, husband, whoever, was a physical match for him in the prophecy. I don't remember him being a physical match, but I see him and he's quite big. But
I must admit, I'm not a fan of this past week.
Of him silently breaking into the house and then holding him at gunpoint. We'll see what's happening on. We'll see what's going on, but usually he's holding them at gunpoint. And I think, would he do that? But I suppose he's worried that the other fella's going to get physical with him. Well, this will just stop him.
Yeah.
Talk to him nicely. Then you put the guns away because they realise there's no threat. And yeah, now you guys got to help me and not pull. And if I ever say something, say that I said something else.
Yeah, like, sorry, you go, Dan.
No, probably just the same thing. The reservation you've got, Jim. There, I've got no problem with any part of the story except that he's got his guns out. To be honest, like the Phantom would sneak into the bedroom of a roughneck and not get his guns out.
Yeah, I don't have. Yeah, the roughneck.
Why is he
things,
doing that to a friend?
Yeah, because there's an old jungle saying, when the Phantom speaks, turns tiger's blood to ice, or when you wake up, scares you. And I can't remember the exact line of it, but this just, I don't know, it makes me a little bit uneasy. And I'm only reading, 2-3 days. I don't know what next week is going to hold. Next week
may make a lot more sense shortly. But it's just at this point in time, it seems very odd.
Yeah, and that's all we can comment on at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, in the way I see it is if he rocks up as Mr. Walker during the morning and say, hey, I may need you. Here's a diamond, or here's some money, from the minor treasure room, or something like that. I'm about to go on a dangerous journey. If I get injured, I might come here, or that would maybe befriend them a little bit better. But
paying them off, I don't think you would need to pay anyone. But
well, if someone gave me a solid diamond, I would help them if they had a bullet coming in.
That's within the world of the Phantom, though, isn't it, Mr. Walker? You go to the movie. Here's some gems. Can you hold the cab for me? It's a pretty classic.
Yeah, but he doesn't open.
But I've been thinking about this a lot this week, and I've had a lot of discussions, whether it's on the Comic Kingdom website or social media or with other people and stuff like that. I wonder if the reason why he's not becoming friendly with them is because he doesn't want to be helped by them if he gets shot.
Oh wow! Now there you go.
That's the only
swerve. Look at that.
That's the only reason. And
and just let him die.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Maybe. But this last panel, I'm going.
I'm going to tell the doctor something. And then I'm going to leave, and with any luck, you'll never see me again. Look, I've been thinking about it, and I know. Look, Tony DePaul knows the Phantom. He knows the lore of the Phantom. He knows that if he wanted them to be friendly, or would become friends, this is not the way to do it. Tony knows what he's doing. I have faith so far.
But that is one thing, isn't it, that we've learned about Tony? Don't make decisions on what's happened in the moment. You've got to wait for the fullness of time.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm kind of thinking, is this, is this why he's wanting them not to be friendly? I don't know. It's just, and look, we'll read next week and then we'll go, oh, yeah, okay, I understand that. And then we'll read the story in full and it's like, yeah, that makes more sense. And stuff.
Interesting theory, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, but it's just at this week, we're just reading this week in isolation. I don't like it because that's not how my Phantom behaves. But maybe he's behaving like this for a reason that I don't fully understand yet.
All right, news. We've got a Kickstarter campaign starting 2nd of November. I'm guessing is that Kelby?
Yes, that's Kelby's. We will get Kelby on the podcast to have a bit of a chat with him about it.
Screen, Germ. I'll just bring up the Kickstarter while we're talking about.
I'm assuming this is the new link that he's just asked that we got.
So look, the preview, obviously. So no backers yet, as Steve said at the time of recording. We're a couple of days before the launch, but it's exciting that these little miniatures are finally, it should be said, going to come to light, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, look, we've got an article on the website which kind of breaks it all down. $90,000 is the goal. That's a lot of money. That's more than what the board game, what their goal was. I think their goal was around 65 or 67 from memory. Now, are you guys going to be backing?
Oh, absolutely, I will. I'm not going to do all $90,000 by myself, though.
What pledge are you likely to go for?
That's a great question. I haven't even really looked at the pledges. I've been absolutely flat strapped today. So if we just run through the pledges now, I'll move.
Probably best to start with what are the pledges and then which one.
Yeah, so the pledges
good idea.
for people who haven't seen the page, and obviously we'll link to this in the show notes. But $20 you can get one of the Phantom Country miniatures unpainted in a box. For $65 you get two. $100 there's one hand painted miniature. There's only 100 of those, and $200 for two hand painted miniatures, or you can pledge for all 10 miniatures once they're available. And it should be said that so far we've only really seen the designs for two, I want to say.
Yes,
Phantom Head's Peak and the Skull Cave, but Kelby, who's putting this all together from Reaper's Quest, does have 10 minis in mind, or you can pledge $1,100 to get all 10 of them pre-ordered and hand painted. Now that's obviously the best value, I suppose, if you're looking at well, they're all about the same.
So that's
really.
what they look like unpainted, the blue version. So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. Basically, if you're on audio only, it's basically the Skull Cave blue, which is unpainted. And then if you scroll down further, you'll see or is it up? Yeah, there's a painted version of the Phantom Head. Yeah. Looks like he's got big juju lips.
Yeah. Yeah. And look,
and designed by Glenn Ford.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think it's an exciting concept. I really hope that it gains some traction and gets going. $90,000 is a lot of money, and so it's going to require a few people to get in and have the faith, I suppose, to pledge for all 10 miniatures once they are out. You asked me before, Germ, where am I likely to land? I mean, I'm not a painter, so $100 for a painted one or $200 for two painted ones sounds good. But by the same token, I guess if I'm looking for value for money, $65 for choice of the first two, one of the first two. So that's only one miniature. I don't know. I actually haven't had
65 for two.
Choice of the first two, one of the first two 3D miniatures of either Phantom Peak or Skull Cave with the artwork and a set of four paints.
Okay, so it's one, and then you get
yeah.
So what's probably the $20 one?
The $20 one is one miniature unpainted in the box.
Okay, so you don't get
$65 is you get the paints with it, as well as I think it's a signed or a digitally signed print of the design from Glenn Ford.
Yeah.
Is there an option to have all 10 unpainted without
$650.
Yeah, but that still gives you the paint sets and stuff.
Plus the paint set. So yeah.
So if there's 10 miniatures and they're $20 each unpainted, where's the $200 level?
The $200 level, $200 level gives you two hand painted miniatures, not 10 unpainted.
Yeah,
so maybe there's an extra pledge level for Kelby.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an extra pledge, level or not. I'll probably be going the $200 one, the two hand painted ones, because like you, Dan, I'm not a painter. I haven't painted my. I've got kits. I've got the board game ones. They haven't been painted. So. For me,
and I'd like to think that I will actually get someone around Tanny to paint them. That's always been the plan, but I haven't actually gone ahead and done that.
Yeah,
and I guess too with the Kickstarter, it's not about trying to find the value for money in a sense. It is actually about supporting the project too. So, like as I said, I'm not going to do the $90,000 by myself. But if everybody just goes, I'll just do the 20 or the 65. He'll never make his total. So it's probably if you've got the room in your budget, I'd encourage people to have a look at that.
If it happens,
if one of those Powerball winners just happen to be a Phantom fan, that'll be
in Kalgoorlie. There is a Nathan. I can't remember his Nathan McKee. I think it is. He's a Phantom fan. He lives in Kalgoorlie. So,
He's picking gold up off the streets out there, isn't he?
so maybe Nathan might have been one of those Powerball winners, and he might be able to pledge and fund the whole thing. But look, if it happens, 75 centimeters by 45 centimeters map with indents for the little miniatures to come on. It's going to look awesome. I got no idea where I'm going to fit it in this room, but if it comes off, if it's funded and we get the map and we get all that type of stuff, it will look epic. But yeah, so look, back it. The beauty about Kickstarter campaigns is if it doesn't meet the money or doesn't meet the goal, you don't pay anything.
Yeah.
So, that's the advantage of it, is you can pledge $200, and then if he doesn't meet it, you don't get it. And if he meets it, well, you get some cool stuff from it, and then we get to be able to buy more fancy stuff.
I really, and I think I'm on the record of saying this, I really like the concept. It's something that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
There's not enough Skull Thrones around, let alone Skull Caves and Phantom Head's Peak and all of the other landmarks around Phantom's Country. We haven't seen 3D versions of those before. So I'm really excited by the concept of it. I hope that it gets up. And the other thing I would say about everything that Kelby and Reaper's Quest have done is that they produce quality. I haven't had the pockets for the jewelry that Reaper's Quest have put out. The wallet doesn't stretch that far. But I look, and I wear it every podcast. This is one of the Reaper's Quest hats, the caps, and it's a really good quality hat. The beanie as well. Like, he doesn't do things by halves, Kelby, and you just know that if it gets off the ground, it'll be really well done. But I guess that's the big question at the moment, and it depends on us, the fans, how much we're prepared to, and how many of us are prepared to get behind the Kickstarter.
With Kelby, it's quality.
That's it.
Okay, next news, we've got Phantom Wiki is back up and running properly. I didn't know it was down. Every time I checked, it was always working.
So basically, start of the year, February, I went to do a software update. It didn't work. There was some issues, and it's taken them it's taken them 6-8 months to kind of get all that sorted. It's back up and running. So for the last 8 months, nothing new has been added to the wiki, including new comments.
That'd be why I'd never noticed, because I was always looking for old stuff. I wasn't looking for new stuff.
So it was still a great resource. It just meant that the new stuff wasn't being updated or new finding stuff. But that's all up and running properly. So great work, Marco. And I think the guy who helped us was PJB, I think was his name. So, he's a whiz at MySQL and some other code and languages and stuff, and a little bit of fairy dust and pixie dust and a bit of band of magic, and it's all working again.
Oh, very good. That's great to hear.
Yeah, that is exciting, and I think we should say again, most times we mention Phantom Wiki, but a huge thank you on behalf of all Phantom fans who want to do a little bit of research. The wiki is an incredible resource, and as Steve says, you may not notice that the new stuff's not going on because there's so much old stuff to be still absorbed by. But yeah, just a huge thanks to Marco in particular, who has been on the podcast before, but anyone who's involved in Phantom Wiki for the work they do.
Exactly.
Okay, we've had a few conventions. We've had Brisbane and Adelaide Supernova.
These are new ones.
Oh, they're coming up. Sorry. Which Phantom related guests do we have?
Okay, so for Brisbane and Adelaide, we've got Jamie Johnson, Daniel Picciardo, Alex Tripp, and Maria Lewis going to the Brisbane and Adelaide Supernova, which I believe is it next weekend or the weekend after? So, are you going to one of those, Dan?
Oh, mate, it hasn't even got on the radar this year. I've just been so busy with work. Highly unlikely. And as much as I love those artists, they're not Billy Zane. If Billy Zane was coming to Brisbane again, I'd make the point of getting down there. But no disrespect to those guys, but probably just a bit too far and not enough time.
Well, hold that thought about Billy. We'll come back to Billy a little bit later in the news.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know where you're going. You thought, oh, Steve, you got some news.
I read the run sheet that you wrote.
If you are listening to this and you are going to one of those conventions, say hello to guests, get some artwork, get some signatures, buy prints, buy original artwork, say hello, take photos, and share
Always
it
a fun
on
time.
your social media. That will always be great.
Yeah.
It's just so good
So,
to see the circuit starting to roll again after
Yeah.
COVID. It's hard to say, even believe I'm saying after COVID, but the world, Australia, very much is in a post-COVID world, and it's great to see that all the restrictions are gone skis, and those things are starting to get up and going again.
but still, please be careful. People are still getting COVID. My son had it just a fortnight ago again.
Yeah, right.
Second bout.
It's a shame he's not an Australian cricket player. He could don the gloves and keep wickets.
If it didn't get washed out. New York Big Apple Con. Is that happened in the past, or is it still
So
happening in the future?
that one's in December.
Yep.
Cy Barry is going to that one. I believe Keith Williams will also be going to that one, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of other Phantom-related artists like Alex Suviak and a couple of others will probably go to that one as well, because it's a fairly big one. I think that's like 2 weeks before Christmas. So, look, if there's anyone out
Early
there,
Christmas present.
yeah, look, we wanted to let people know about when fandom-related guests are going to conventions around the world. So if you know of anything, drop us a message. Our email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. We're all on social media. Tag us in the post or something like that, so we can put a post up on our website so we can let other fans know about it, because, you know, we do have a reach of fans around the world. So let us know, please.
Rightio. Next up, we have the Phantom 2040 archive created by Joe Douglas. Is this a new one, or is this a...
Yeah, this is new. You really should read the links. There's
Mate,
a really good
I
website,
haven't
Steve.
seen much to... I know the website.
Really good website called chroniclechamber.com.
Chamber, yes.
And if you want, you can actually get the news delivered to your email by signing that annoying pop-up window that won't go away.
Oh, that
Put
pop-up.
your email address in there, and then every time there's a new article, new podcast, new video, or whatever, it will get emailed to you. So that way, if you miss out on social
if
media,
you've already signed up once.
I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So that's the honest answer.
Patreon level. Get rid of the pop-up window.
Yeah. Oh, it irks me.
But basically, Joe Douglas is a huge 2040 fan. If you've been around Chronicle Chamber for any period of time, you would know that. He's basically created a little archive that has got a synopsis of every episode, got a bio of the characters, got a tour of the video game, including the good ending and the bad ending. It's got a lot of the stuff that he's already done, whether it's on the wiki, on the web, on our website, Chronicle Chamber, and he's just kind of put it all together for a Phantom 2040 archive. It's got our podcast that we did with Tom Schillinger, I believe, from memory, and it's got some other stuff. Look, it's a great resource. Go out, check it out. Joe has wrote the article that will be in our show notes. So he talks about it from his perspective, why it's special to him and everything like that as well. So it's a good little peek behind the purpose of the website.
And just, I really love that in the huge Phantom universe world, all of the different Phantom things are like, that's a really niche thing that Joe's just, you know, he won't mind me saying this, that Joe's just obsessed by, and for him to be able to channel his energies and produce something that anyone else can visit and dip their toe in those waters, you know, it's the definitive Phantom preservation project of Phantom 2040. So full credit to you, Joe. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, now I said hold on to your hats about Billy Zane, because here comes some Billy Zane news. Billy Zane Phantom movie costume. Have you got if you won Powerball the other night, or if you,
I think if for Australian dollars, you might need to have done more than just win Powerball.
I'm just going back to, I can't remember how much it was up for last time when I checked.
It was 20 odd grand, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what they expect.
Price range
Yeah.
20 odd grand to 30 odd pounds.
So then you double that.
Yeah, so from up to 55,000 Australian. But it is the Phantom movie costume, and it comes with the mannequin, which has got the not the skull, what's it called? The head, the plastered head of Billy Zane. You can have Billy Zane in your own house. Well, his likeness anyway. Running in the costume.
So, Stephen, I know you've been saving up. I assumed it was for the kids, but has that now been put aside and you're having a bit of a nibble at this? How did the conversation go with your lovely wife saying that, sorry, Christmas has been cancelled, I'm buying something?
I wasn't one of those lucky through that one Powerball the other day, and so this isn't happening. It would be awesome.
Here's a pointless trivia question for you then. So through number one, depending on the condition and all the rest of it, 15 to 20,000. What if you had the choice of a complete set of mint condition Frews from 1 through to current? Someone could give you that, or the costume from the Billy Zane movie. Which would you choose?
The comics.
Comics?
Absolutely, no question about it.
If it was all of them, yeah, probably the comics.
Yep.
But if it was like number one or the Billy Zane costume, I would go the Billy Zane costume. But
yeah,
the complete set, there's probably maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe, wouldn't be much more complete sets than that. So, I can think of 4 or 5 or, people who are like 1 or 2 issues away from that.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there'll be plenty others that have got, or there would be others that have got that. So, yeah, so I reckon there will be, at a complete guess, a bit of an educated guess, maybe 20 to 30 complete sets. So, yeah, I reckon that's still...
Billy Zane Phantom costume.
Well, actually, no, there's more than one.
Well, there's one. Would there be 20? There'd be fewer than 20.
I believe... Look, I have read it somewhere, and I believe with... who were we talking to? We're talking to someone. It was on the cosplay episode that we had with Chris, the Australian cosplayer. He was talking about the different costumes actually had a different tinge to it, a different shade of purple, because purple doesn't react well when filmed. So they have like a darker purple, a lighter purple, a in-between purple, depending on what type of mood they were filming in and stuff like that. So, and then you've also got Billy Zane. You would have his stuntman and stuff like that. So, look, I reckon there will be at least 5 costumes, and 5 does ring a bell, but I'm not sure if that's just.
Maybe it's my contrarian phase today, and both of you guys have said the full set of Frew comics. I actually think I'd probably go the Billy Zane costume on the mannequin for the space that it would take up as a display feature. As a display feature, the 2,000 Frew comics are not going to take up much less space. And what are you going to do? Put them in comic boxes or put them in a cupboard? Whereas the mannequin proudly wearing the costume, sitting in the corner of the room. You could use it
standing in the corner of your room. I reckon it'll be the centerpiece of your room. You would take the TV down. You'd be going, this is it.
I'd absolutely want the display case on wheels, and I'd put it just outside my kid's bedroom so that when they wake up in the middle of the night,
to wake up and see the side of a old Fraser saying.
Well, we can dream, but look, congratulations and good luck to the collector who manages to pick that up, because I can't explain to my wife that was $20.
With
a couple of zeros.
All the best for those who are going to be in the bidding. Good luck. Okay, Phantom article in the October 2022 Asamesi magazine Sofura. Have I pronounced that correctly? I'm not sure.
Who are you asking?
Yeah, I was going to say, have I pronounced that correctly, Jermaine? Knowing full well that I'm throwing you completely under the bus.
So basically, Suaj.
S-E-U-J.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce your name, mate. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He wrote the article. He actually wrote the article that not only for our website, but actually wrote the article in this magazine.
I've just clicked on it now. I'm having a look.
Yeah, so basically, this magazine, Assamese is the language, is an Indian language.
Assamese.
Look, I would have mispronounced. Everything I say in the next 30 seconds is going to be wrong. I'll apologise once. So the magazine Safua is releasing. So they do like a monthly magazine, and one page is a phantom story, or a page from a phantom story. And in the October one, they've actually got an article introducing the phantom to the readers, letting people know what it's all about and stuff like that. And Suaj, our friend, who also will be doing the Regal and the Shatki reviews for the immediate future, wrote the article and wrote the article for the magazine, and then wrote the article for our website as well. So it's great to see that the Phantom is being published in various. I think that's now Assamese, Taji. Oh no, sorry, Tamil, Bengali, Hindu, and English. So it's 5 or 6 different Indian languages at the moment, which is great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Next point of news, we've got Comics Kingdom and DiscountMags.com bring together a paid subscription service for vintage strips. So is this like you can go back and reread old Lee Falk and McCoy rather than just picking up your Frew?
I think they really missed the ball on this. But don't get me wrong, it's good to see Comics Kingdom, aka KFS, aka Hearst, trying to do something and cash in on 80 years of good stories. And you go to our website, you can see the subscription service. It's like about $20. So I think to read the whole story, it's going to cost you like $40 or $60, which is ridiculous.
To read an old folk story?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Look, if it was me, what they should have done is put the story on Amazon and done a subscription with that, with like your Kindle and stuff like that. Like in the article, I actually had someone contact me and ask me if I wrote this article without eating anything because I sounded very hangry. I'm writing the article, but so like you buy a book which is $20 US, or if you do the subscription service on your Kindle, you can get the Herms Volume 1 for free as part of your subscription service, which costs, I think it's like what, $15 a month or something a Kindle. And you get 2-3 stories for free compared to paying $60 for one story. I just, like, yes, it's good to see Comics Kingdom doing something with classic stories, but they've missed the ball. They've missed it totally with this service. And it's a little bit sad.
That's had a huge take up.
No.
As you say, the economy of scale just blows it out of the water when you think that you can go on eBay and pick up that same story in a Frew comic for probably less than $5 delivered.
Yeah. Yep. So maybe I was hangry when I wrote it, but I just shook my head. I still shake my head. I'm shaking my head. If you're on audio only, I'm shaking my head even as I'm saying this because it doesn't make sense.
Kind of defies logic. Moving on to a little bit more of bad news, but you may have read recently that Peter Kingston passed away.
Yeah, Dan, you wrote a really touching piece. Do you want to touch upon it?
Yeah, look, I was really disappointed and sad to hear that Peter Kingston had died. It probably didn't come as a huge shock because he'd been sick for a while and had been battling cancer, but it's not something that he ever complained about or made a big deal. He was always about. He's such a bloke who was so embedded in the past, but in the as I said in the post that I wrote, it's he was like a focused on steroids, if you like. Lee Falk stories, but they had to be Ray Moore or Wilson McCoy. And for him, it was the art. It was always the art. So McCoy and Moore's art pieces and the way that he turned those, appropriated those images into his pop culture artwork, and the myriad of Phantom-related but high-end art shows and exhibitions that he put on across 3 or 4 generations. I don't know much about the art world in Australia. He seems to be well thought of, but on the second, or I don't know. I really don't know, but on the second or third tier of great Australian artists, someone who never quite broke into the, and he was friends with Brett Whiteley and with other high end artists, but. Yeah, look, as someone who gave a lot to the Phantom community, and I met him a number of times through the Phantom Art Show, and interviewed him for the website and the podcast, and I was really appreciative of this platform in those years when the art show was touring around, because it gave me the excuse and the opportunity to have conversations and record a lot of those, and share a lot of Peter's thoughts at the time, and got to know him as a person. He was someone who was really thoughtful and always concerned for others, but also really concerned about politics and the way the world was going, and bemoaned the Sydney Harbour ferries being updated, and really wanted to keep seeing the old girls go around that he was so fond of, and loved his Ginger Megs and Crazy Cat and Bullfed and all of the old classic comics that he'd grown up with. And anyway, just someone who, and for us at Chronicle Chamber, when we did the bushfire appeal book in particular, I mean, to me, no other story speaks about his generosity than when we reached out to artists, as he was, to say, hey, would you like to contribute, or could you possibly contribute a picture to the book? He didn't contribute a picture, but he donated so much stuff from the art show and all those catalogues, and really gave us that initial financial seed, I suppose, to be able to do the rest of the things, and it all contributed towards what was a really positive fundraising experience for that bushfire crisis. So, that's just one story amongst thousands, I'm sure, that his friends and family would have. And may you rest in peace, Peter Kingston. Thank you for everything that you gave to the Australian community, the Sydney Harbour community, the art community, and I guess in particular the Phantom community.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dan, for those touching words. That's great. It's always hard to move on from news like that, but we do have one last little bit of news, and that's Editions Dante released their second hardcover Moonstone collection. Have you already got this, Jim?
No, to be honest, I have not got
first one?
my copy. I don't have the first one. I actually had the money, and then I was going to buy them, but then they sold out of one of them, so I haven't got around to actually buying the other one, because I was going to buy both of them at the same time. And then I think we're going to get on to review them for us, but I haven't followed that up, or I haven't even brought them yet. So, look, it's good to see Moonstone stories being collected, printed, and published again. Hopefully, it might mean that we need Moonstone back. Moonstone need to come back. We need them. King Features, you need to give Moonstone the license. They did a great job. Their stories are still being published and enjoyed now, with this one, which is the French ones as well, and I believe there's others as well. So look, we need more of Moonstone. So hopefully they can come back.
Well, it's been 12 years since a new Phantom Moonstone story was published. It's been a fair break, and it is interesting timing that the French publishers have decided to pick this one up and go with it. So, how many of the actual stories have they published across the 2 editions?
Oh no, so the first one's from the actual first series. So that's because that's the stories done by Ben Rabb, Pat Quinn, and stuff like that. So I think they're actually starting from the beginning. So that's interesting. So that would be kind of cool. Look, yeah, I really enjoyed the Moonstone series. Have you gone around and read them all yet?
No, I haven't, and I haven't even collected all of them. They were, as I said, finished 12 years ago. So they really were being published through that 2002 something, 2002 through to 2010, and that was a period of time where I was in remote northwestern Queensland and not really picking up certainly American comic books. So I've had to chase them in the back order, and they've always slipped to the bottom of the to do or the to buy list, I suppose. So I haven't fulfilled a collection there. It's certainly something that I know you would you recommend, and you certainly have many times, to the Moonstone stories to us. And it's there does seem to be a little bit of groundswell. I'm not sure if it's just you pushing behind the scenes, Germ, or trying to get Moonstone back up on a board. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because we haven't seen a new series from Hermes Press, who are the last mob or current mob. I don't know where that's the American license stands, but there's certainly no one that we know of definitively producing new stories in America.
I'm just trying to think when I'm just trying to think when did the Herms publish their last one?
Took them about 3 years between 2017 and 2019 is what I want to say.
2020 was when it finished. So the President Kennedy's mission was published between 2017 and 2020. So it took 3 years.
I was on the money.
And then, of course, we had Dynamite between them as well. Look, The Phantom needs to be published in America. We all want a film. We all want a TV show. Yes, The Phantom's been published in Sweden. It's been published in Australia. It's been published in India. They're probably the three main supporter groups. It's good. India's got a lot of fans. There's been a huge groundswell of fans from India, but we need a publisher in America. And the best publisher probably since DC in the late 80s has been Moonstone. So in the last 30 years, Moonstone has actually come closest to actually producing a decent comic series. And they produced a lot of comics. They are actually, believe it or not, Moonstone have actually produced the most Phantom comics of any publisher in America.
Yeah. And look, they're certainly not going to give it back to Charlton or Golden Key. So, and
half of those stories were rubbish anyway. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So look, we need, I know we're not talking about Moonstone. This is not on the run sheet, but there's my quick little rant. So when King Features decide to listen to this podcast and they get down to the 2.5 hour mark or however long this is, and they listen to this, they will realise that, yes, they were wrong, and they will ring up Joe. I think it's Joe. I can't remember his name. Is it Joe Gentle? I believe he might be the owner of Moonstone, and say, just listen to the podcast from the guys at Chronicle Chamber. Let's give you the rights back.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be great.
Anyone who is listening closely to the podcast will have maybe heard a little chime not that long ago when we ran out of Steve's 14% battery. Unfortunately, he's ticked down to 0 and has dropped out of the chat. Sadly, we've got a plaintive message via the chat group there saying computer died, and sadly, Steve's not here to finish out the podcast. But we just about made it without him.
Yeah, well, it would have been quicker if it was without him.
Well, no, he sped us through the last 12 to 15 or 20 minutes or so, that's for sure. And good on him.
Yes, but look, I think that's everything anyway. So thanks for sticking with us, Dan. This podcast has had a bit of everything. Matt, for joining us at the start.
Thanks,
Stephen, we hope and believe that it was your battery that died and you just didn't fall asleep. But thank you.
Holding up well.
Yeah, thank you everyone else for listening to us. Look, our website is chroniclechamber.com. Our email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. As we said before, if you want to be notified of new articles, ensure you either follow us on social media or sign up with your email in that annoying little box on our website, and you will be emailed as soon as something new is posted on our website. Patreon. Dan will be doing another update with Patreon with the Phantom Preservation Library over the summer holidays, so that will either be in December or January.
Before Christmas is the plan. Like there has been certainly been a while between Patreon updates. There was a soft launch Patreon update, if you like, a couple of months ago, where I added a few things and updated the index without necessarily broadcasting that, because it wasn't like a huge amount of stuff. But there's a few extra things that have crept onto the P3 since the last formal update, I suppose. But yeah, certainly once the work year starts to wrap up and we get into the Christmas period, certainly before Christmas Day is the absolute goal.
Yeah. Now, if you want to add to it, you can either send us newspaper articles or clippings or stuff like that. This is where someone has sent through some to me. All that type of stuff is what basically we're preserving the Phantom's history. So please send it. Now, you might have seen me sipping out of this during the day. I try to do a bit of product placement, and there's one right behind me there as well, which I kept covering with my shoulder. Patreons, if you are pledging with us with $5 or more, one of these cool little stubby which has got our beautiful logo on the front and Savvy J's words on the back.
Here's our stubby cooler. Thank you very much, Grange Wallace and Sammy J.
That will be on its way to you. If you can see that pile of envelopes, sort of where my thumb is, I can't get my around there. They're all the ones that I've packed so far, and I'm about halfway through packing them. So you should get them in the month of November. Now, also in episode 234, which is our next one, we have our next Patreon. We have news on our next Patreon giveaway. Plus, there's going to be a prize for the first new Patreon when that podcast gets released. So that's pretty cool. So make sure you listen and find out how you can win, which I've already kind of told you. You can subscribe to us via
if you're thinking about subscribing, just hold on until the next one drops and then jump on as quick as you can.
That's it. That is it. Yeah, didn't really think of that one through. You can subscribe to us via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps, including iTunes or Spotify. Thank you for listening. Not sure how long this is going to be, but probably going to need one of these to get through us. Thank you for watching, listening. Dan, thank you. Stephen and Matt, thank you also for joining us. Might have been long, but I hope you enjoy it. Happy Phantom.
Happy Phantom, everyone.